Good evening, everybody. This is Prospector Jess from huntingforgold.com. I'm here again tonight to talk a little bit more about prospecting. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you want to know about more of regarding placer and lode prospecting? What kind of questions do you have? If you could answer them below, or ask them below, better yet. I'm going to try tonight to see if I can give a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to visit our live stream and let you kind of ping me with some questions, because it's time you had some feedback. We've been at this live streaming thing, doing one every night, sometimes two videos posted, but one of these live every night. And the idea is to give you a chance to ask questions and get some feedback. I also want to make sure that you're aware of the material that we have going out live stream is reposted to other places. So one of the things I wanted to show you, is how we're doing, which is kind of fun because you guys are really responding, and I really love it. I love to be able to interact with you live, and I also love to be able to interact with you with these reposts, because we're seeing a real dynamic that we haven't seen before. A community is forming, and it's really cool. Gold prospectors are some of the neatest people I know. So let's take a look at this full screen picture I've got. So one of the things you're aware of course, is that we're doing live streaming straight into Facebook. And that's where I'm getting this initial feedback and initial response, and that's really cool. We're also seeing that in addition to that effect, we repost, usually within 24 hours, right onto my YouTube channel, which is the Hunting for Gold channel, or Prospector Jess channel. Actually, it's Hunting for Gold Facebook page and the Prospector Jess channel, which you can subscribe to and get access to these videos reposted on YouTube. Last night's stream flow and placer gold is already up to 81 views. It was posted this afternoon, so it's booking. We have quite a few others that are doing, same post has reached 4,588 people with 277 people engaging. That's just awesome, guys. Thanks. I appreciate it. So along that line, I wanted to kind of go into tonight's show and have a chance for us to look at the material. How many of you have seen this video? This is really what moves gold, and I wanted to show that to you because it's just an amazing picture. If you look in the background here, you see it looks almost like smoke, not just water, but like dust, and everything else is flying up from this thing because it's exploding through the trees and the shrubbery and just tearing it out, which means it's tearing the boulders that are connected to the roots, and they're going downstream underneath this, what looks like cement, red cement moving downstream. That's what moves gold. That's what we've been talking about all week. So keep that in mind as you're looking at gold prospects. When you see things that are ripped up like this, start thinking, okay, how heavy was the flow? And oh, by the way, how wide was it? And somewhere underneath here is the little summer stream that you see. You're not interested in that. You're interested in this thing, because notice where those big logs are going. That's where it's going to be depositing stuff, and that's what's important to keep track of. So that's what we've been about. So tonight we should have a live stream posted on the page. Normally, do something like this, it causes all manner of feedback problems, but it'd be fun trying. Hey, there we are. Look at that. We got 24 people on. Hey, great job, guys. Thanks for joining us. And notice I can see on this picture the picture I was posting just a second ago, showing you all that flooding, and then I start hunting for where we're going now. So this is fun. So what we want to do right now is kind of open the panel up, open our discussion, and you guys give me some questions down below, and I'll just start responding with what you got. I got people. Marion Rhodes says, "Hi, I have a question." Okay, so let's have it. Matthew Rackley says, "I'm ready to go hunting." All right, so we're good to go. What I'd like you guys to think about is, okay, well, if you're going to go hunting, where are you hunting? What I noticed that we have people from West Virginia, we have people from Alaska, we have people from Oregon, Arizona, we've had people from Montana. So let's have a chime in. Okay, so Matthew says, "Hi all." All right. And so that's a picture of what we want to do, but I want to make sure we have a chance to get everybody to start chiming in and give me some questions. So this is an opportunity to get some feedback. I thought we'd do these from time to time, not necessarily every night. because it usually takes a little prep to answer some of these questions, but I'm open for some off-the-cuff discussion. It's great, and it's good to see you guys. So right now we're reaching 822 people. 32 people have engaged already. So now we're starting to cook. We got people liking and all kinds of good stuff. Have you been in Utah? Yes, I've been in Utah. I have not prospected Utah. Not any particular reason why not, except that I just haven't done any there. So it's a great place. There is gold in Utah. It's a little funny in how it places and where you find it, but people find it. It's not, I'm in California and you kind of find it by tripping over it practically, but if it weren't for the laws. But that's a whole nother can of worms. I'd like to not go there tonight. We can open that up on a special night for legal issues and the like. Prospecting in South Carolina, says Marion Road. Nick McKenzie is saying, let's see, K, okay? And Marion Road says prospecting in South Carolina. So we have quite a bit of interest in South Carolina. And how long have I been prospecting? Well, let's see. I started at age, I think it was about 14, 12, somewhere in there. But the place where I came back into it is kind of interesting. And that was in 96, 98. I went on a family vacation with my kids as opposed to being a kid on a trip. And I took the kids back to where I went when I was a kid, back up to Columbia, California, to a gold prospecting, it's a state park that's dedicated to the gold prospector, the 1849er. Great place to go. There's steam engines. There's during the summertime, they have when they're open and they have things going. They have live blacksmithing and horses and gamblers and you name it. It's fun. Get your own sarsaparilla. I remember that. That was fun. So, but in Colombia, they had some of the richest gold ever found in California. And in the process, they've dedicated that segment of the state to be kind of a state park that's in honor of the 1849er. And it's really cool. So doing that, I got the kids a trip to go learn to prospect, to pan for gold, and to find some gold. Well, we found some. So that started gold fever amongst the young boys. Girls got interested too, but the boys really got fever. And so we got invited to go the next day to a guy named Joshua Vick, had a prospecting training camp down on Woods Creek. And so we went down to Woods Creek and we panned and we dug and we riffled for a good, about 8 hours and had a blast. And at that point, it was locked in solid. And so then the rest of the year was spent building sluice boxes and getting gold pans and hammers and whatnot. And it wasn't until, a few years later, we actually went up and got our own prospect and got going with dredging and high banking and sluicing and all manner of geology, which I had in my background back in the old days. So that's kind of how I got started. So I've been going for quite a while. Let's see, if half the stream is fast-moving water, says Bob Sheasley, and the other side is slow because of bedrock, will gold fall out on the edge between the fast and the slow water? When the water reduces speed, the gold starts to drop immediately. Now, why is it the reduction in speed? Because anything faster is going to keep going, but anything slowed down is going to start parking. Larger particles and nuggets first, down to the fine stuff, which may, if there's any flow at all, may continue to go on downstream because it almost floats. So what happens when you get this kind of situation is it depends on whether there's a curve or straight section. And I go into that in great length in the 2020 prospecting thing. I talk about and helical flow. But the principle is the same, and that is hydrodynamics drives the gold to be swept to one side or the other of the stream bed or down the middle. And so in so doing, you kind of have to know that during the high flow, not low flow, high flow, to know where the gold is going to concentrate out. Because it may very well be that the beach that you're sitting on is where the gold actually is parked, and it's down 3-4 feet toward bedrock. So keep that in mind next time you look. What are the odds? Brian Brown says, what are the odds of us ever getting to dredge again in California rivers? That's a really good question. I would have expected this thing to have been resolved within a year or 3. And here it's going on a decade. So this is kind of silly. What we need to be about is making darn sure that those who are headed to the Supreme Court get our support, because that's the only thing that can break this open, or possibly some Ninth Circuit court changes. Right now what you have is a overwhelming majority of court and and legal representatives in the state of California who have basically made a statement that they only support people who pay a lot of money in re-election campaign funds for causes such as conservation and so forth, diversity of the ecosystem, and that leaves everybody else out. And when you look at it closely, it leaves everybody in the economy out. Ranchers, food processors, anybody who builds building material, rocks, anybody who builds anything, anybody who basically uses energy. So pretty soon you're back to caveman days. But that is a part of the agenda here, and I don't want to get into the whole thing of that, but it is definitely quite obvious based on the performance of what they do. Now, let's see. Gold don't float, LOL. Gold does float if you have very fine flour gold and you get your fingertips with sunscreen oil, or you get your pan with oil in it by, the plastics. They use a plasticizer material, and they use a gold, not a gold, they use a oil material to eject the pan out of the mold. So they actually coat the mold with a silicone oil. And when you get these pans when they're new, they're coated with that oil. You got to scrub this thing with a wool brush, steel or copper wool, and some soap, dish detergent, and get all of that oily surface off. Make it as dull a finish as you can. If you look at this thing, this used to be shiny as could be right through here, and now that's a dull spot. There's an even duller spot over here, which is by design, and then there's the riffles. But the idea is you want to basically get rid of all that, because it will make flour gold float. All it takes is a small bubble of oil, which you can't even, microscopic, and a microscopic piece of gold, and you stick the oil onto it, it'll spread out over the surface, and now the gold has a buoyancy roughly even with that of water, and it'll just float downstream until the water completely settles out, and that gold will be left on the top. That's why you see a lot of flour gold deposits on sandbars and not in the rocks and cobbles down at the bottom. Okay, so thanks. Let's see, what else do we have here? We got looking to purchase a blue bowl set up soon. I'd bring mine out and show it to you. I use a blue bowl. It's a little tricky to set up. The key to blue ball success is the speed of the swirling. Take it right to the lip and just about over. And then what you want to do is make sure that you basically, again, clean it out with detergent, because you're working with small gold. And the other thing you want to do is make sure that when you have it, I would opt to buy the extra levelers that go on the bucket and level that thing with a bubble level, because you want that whole rip. You really don't need a bubble level, because if you level it so that it's going evenly, it'll start dripping from all sides evenly. But the idea is you want to make that thing run as smoothly and evenly as you can, and as fast, because that drives the black sands out and keeps the gold down. Now, if your gold is really, really fine, you may have to throttle it back, because fine gold has a property. We talked about it earlier. It's very close to the density of water, and so what's going to happen is it's going to start getting scooted along, partly because it acts like little airfoils. It'll start getting tripped into the rest of the flow of the black sands, and it'll go right on out and into your bucket. Same problem occurs if you're dredging, or if you're high banking, or if you're using a sluice box. If you run it too fast and you got lots of fine gold, slow it down. Get the black sands to start building up on the riffles so that it goes not more than half the way across your riffle gap, but about halfway, and that will ensure that you're trapping the fine stuff. If you go to where you're only seeing pebbles in there, guess where the fine stuff went? Out the back. So that's another tip. Let's see, Lori says she has a placer claim in the Black Hills. They've been trying to hit bedrock for 8 years. Still haven't succeeded. Always hit water and have to swim. LOL, this is our year for that. This is our year on that claim. Yep, so there you go. You just got to keep going. The other thing you might do is try finding some place where the bedrock protrudes and get an idea of the slope of the rock. They call that a strike. So you're looking to see if there's a diving rock slope. You can kind of get an idea of the angle, and that'll give you some feel for how deep you're going to have to dig to get to bedrock where you are. Other points, if there's jagged blocks down below, which there are, and where I do a lot of prospecting, it's all serpentine, and that stuff just breaks up in big blocks. So you can have a boulder the size of a house down below you, and you wouldn't even know it. and the gold will go all the way around it and find someplace underneath the stick. So you have to just kind of know that, and so that's an important thing. So, okay, any more questions? This is great, guys. Thanks for the feedback. Do I have a video available? Good question. Yes, we have videos of virtually every report we have has a video associated with it that really is kind of how the report came to be in the first place. I'm much better at this hand waving thing. You know, as people said, if my hands were tied behind my back, I couldn't speak. So I like to talk, and you know, I'm a visual kind of person in terms of learning, and so I tend to make things like, you know, slopes and riffles and stuff like that. I tend to gesture a lot, and that works well on video. So that's what I do as my #1 product. But as an adjunct to that, I do give out the reports that are related, and in part that's so that you can get going quicker and cheaper. It's much easier to produce. But yes, we have videos and we have DVDs. So we have video web material, and we also have DVDs if you want to chuck it in the player. We're seeing of recent that not as many people are interested in the DVDs as once were. We also have whole video sets that you can get, whole DVD sets. And so if you look under products on the Sourdough Miner page or on Hunting for Gold, you can find the access to those offerings. Feel free to peruse to your heart's content and ask any questions you want to about that. That's a good question. Can GPAA claims, yes, GPAA claims, yes or no? Yes, I have done GPAA, GPPA, but it's GPAA, you know, Gold Prospectors Association of America. And I have been a member, and I've used their claims. There are a lot of okay claims, and then there's some really good ones. You know, obviously the Lost Dutchman Loud Mine in Arizona comes to mind. And then there's another really good one up right outside of Columbia, Italian Bar. And so that's a really good place to go hang out, and some good gold comes out of that hole. There's actually a lot of holes in that area, Yankee Hill, and you know, if you look at the history of the area, it is loaded with gold. The airport sits on an area that once had bowls that were bored by the way the water flow went, ancient water flow went, and down in those bowls the prospectors found nuggets, big nuggets, and that's how they knew there was a lot of gold in the region. One of the biggest chunks of gold came out of an area north of there toward Angels Camp, and one of the biggest chunks of recent history came out in 96, 98, Christmas Eve nugget, and it's at the Ironstone Winery. Look it up. Gorgeous. The piece that they have remaining is like 60-something pounds of crystalline gold. That's really precious stuff, all in one piece. But it was 300 pounds of gold that they blasted out on the very last night that they could operate legally. They were losing their license and decided to let the claim go. So they did one more fire, and then they found the biggest amount of gold they'd ever found out of the Harvard mine right along Jamestown. So those are worth looking up to see what you can find, but it's fun. William Noble says, I'm in Indiana, and this year me and a friend are going to start looking in the creeks with high banker and good tips for semi-flat areas. Okay, well, Indiana is going to be an interesting problem in its own right, because a lot of that area has some fine to coarse gold, not much heavier than that. So keep yourself dialed in for the fine gold, because there is good flour gold in the area, especially anywhere in that area where there's been glacial till. There's, you know, gold everywhere, but it's very, very fine stuff. So again, you're going to have to dial down your high banker and dredge. You're going to have to dial down your sluice box to capture that gold. Maybe run a long tom, you know, add an extra length, or some of the, there's some new mattings that are really cool that use various types of toroidal flow or what do they call it, helix kind of structures and things like that. But there's some neat things. There's a miracle matting by the Keene family. They have a really nice matting that has various types and sizes to adapt to these finer flows while still trapping some of the bigger nuggets. Lois says, I'm talking in South Dakota. All of our mining activities take place. Okay, so that's where Lois does all of their stuff, is in South Dakota. And South Dakota has a history of really good gold mining, especially along the reaches up there outside of Rapid City. You go up into the mountains there. There's a whole lead and that area. There's the old Homestake. It's actually not that old. Like, it closed in the late 80s. You know, Homestake gold mine. Probably worth opening again. They're entertaining the thoughts, but it always kind of becomes a big question of whether they can get over the hurdles that have been put in place to prevent them from starting up. But that place has produced a tremendous amount of gold, particularly using the heap leach cyanide method from microfine crystals in various metamorphic rocks. And in fact, let's see, I don't have it here, but let's see. Nope, I don't have it here. I mean, I do, but it's probably hidden. I'll bring it up another time, but when we talk about rocks and stuff, I'll show you some of the drill samples that came out of the Homestake in South Dakota. Okay, Deadwood. Yes, Deadwood. So Deadwood area, and I had a cousin who was north of there out at Spearfish, so down the Spearfish Canyon. Gorgeous country. Oh man, spectacular views and spectacular gold. And of course, that gave rise, some of that gold gave rise to alloying with copper and other things, in addition to the natural native alloys that were forming in that area that give rise to Black Hills gold, which is all kinds of colors from rose to green to brilliant orange to yellow to white, you know, and so they make some fantastic jewelry with that. So for right now, let's call it a night. And like I said, you can subscribe over here on Prospector Jess's channel on YouTube. And, you know, you can see all of my good stuff over there, right here. And there's a bunch of videos there to take a look at if you get bored or it's rainy and you're not out prospecting like you should be. So, Prospector Jess, over and out. Have a good night and good prospecting. We'll see you tomorrow.